All right, so I have a thought on Charvarius Ward, Deommodore, Lenoir, and the rest of the 49ers secondary, because this is the best secondary that they've had under Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch. But Margot has some thoughts about where we're at right now, Hambleton Hall. And I mean, this is spectacular. You had a thought about the gardening quality.
So English gardens are traditionally very clean cut, well preserved, very manicured. You'll see the hedges and the shape that has been very painstakingly executed from a groundskeeper, no doubt. But on the one hand, you have these very manicured gardens. On the other hand, you have kind of these more wild, this wild marriage between flora, fauna, landscaping, and nature.
You're in your habitat right now.
I'm living my best life right now.
Did you think about staying here?
No.
Do you want to stay here?
Yes.
That's all we need. Interview finished. Time to talk about Charvarius Ward, Deommodore, Lenoir, and this 49ers secondary. We had a great lunch, but speaking of that secondary, you go through the years and it seems they had always invested more in the defensive line and in the linebackers than in the defensive backs. And I think that I don't think that the investment patterns have necessarily changed. I think that there still is a lot of money poured into the D-line. They obviously still have a lot of resources poured into linebacker, but they've just said, okay, we're going to up the spending on the cornerbacks and the safety position as well. And Charvarius Ward is on a big money deal. He's going to be a free agent after this season unless they extend him. But so is Deommodore Lenoir. And Deommodore Lenoir is not on the big money deal, but he's also targeted for free agency with the 49ers. So what you have is two starting cornerbacks who are scheduled for free agency after this season, but they've supplemented the room around them with a couple other big free agent signings. Isaac Yiadom, who was really, really good for the Saints down the stretch last year after Paulson Adebo got hurt. So they swapped Yiadom in there. He had 12, 13 pass breakups on the season. Ward led the NFL with 17 and he played the full season. So Yiadom did that in half a year. And they also added Rock Yassin, who has had a nice NFL career. He was most recently with the Baltimore Ravens. Mix in the young guys on top of that. You talk about spending on the defensive backfield. Renardo Green out of Florida State led the ACC in pass breakups last year. I've written a big piece on Renardo, and I focused on the fact that a lot of people think he was the best press man corner last season, and that's saying something. There's a lot of good corners in the SEC and the ACC, and Renardo Green, as far as the style of, just the physical style of play, the gritty style of play goes, that the 49ers obviously want, because they want corners to be able to throw their heads in there and make physical stops against the run. They need, they need somebody who can crack down from that corner position to make the scheme work. From that standpoint, Renardo Green has been just as good as anybody, especially anybody coming out of the draft this year. And how he fits in with what the 49ers already have is going to be fascinating, because they are so strong veteran-wise at that corner and, even the safety position. Renardo Green played some safety at Florida State. Safety is where San Francisco is a little bit thinner, though. And that's because, we need to know when Talanoa Hufanga exactly is going to be back and how strong he's going to be when he does come back. They did spend a draft pick, though, on Malik Mustafa. So that does theoretically strengthen the position. And then it's just a matter of, do the 49ers add more? I know that there's been some talk in the media. I think Albert Breer mentioned Justin Simmons again. That's a name that we were talking a whole lot about a couple months ago, but that was before the drafting of Mustafa, and that was before we knew that Talanoa Hufanga was firmly on track to be back for week 1. So how the 49ers wrap up this offseason and move into training camp at safety, whether or not they acquire another veteran, that's going to be, I think, probably the most interesting player acquisition story to watch. But I think the big picture, just looking at the mix of veteran and rookie talent in this secondary as a whole, I think that you have to say that the 49ers are set up to be as strong as they've ever been under this regime in the defensive backfield. And then it's a matter of integrating with what Nick Sorensen's going to run, with what Brandon Staley's going to run. You know that he's going to want versatility out of his defensive backs. He has in the past. Jalen Ramsey playing the star position for the Rams. Derwin James played that position for Brandon Staley with the Chargers. If the 49ers can take this talent and integrate it with the scheme at a more effective level than they did last year under Steve Wilks, which is why they replaced Steve Wilks because it wasn't good enough, well, then I think the sky can be the limit for this defense. Here's the stat that I'll leave you with from Hamilton Hall. Even though the 49ers dropped in run defense last year significantly from number 2 all the way down to number 26, and that led to the defensive drop overall in DVOA from number 1 to 10, the pass defense was able to stay in the top 6. And that was even with some sketchy play on the outside. The 49ers were obviously thin at nickelback, so whenever you moved Deommodore Lenoir inside, Ambry Thomas had a play on the outside, and the 49ers had a little bit of a liability there. I don't think that they have to face the same liability if they play their cards right this season. They're just so much deeper at the cornerback position. So if they didn't slide out of the top 10 pass defense-wise, even with a bad supporting run defense that diffused the pass rush last year, I think the 49ers can be pretty damn good, and they've been amongst the league interception leaders as a team over the past 2 seasons. So it seems to me that the beautiful sky is the limit for the 49ers on the pass defense this season. So long from Hamilton Hall. Our tour of England will continue.
Go. Go. Go.